Carl Yastrzemski learned skill, toughness, and determination growing up on his family's potato farm in New York's Long Island. He hit his way through the Red Sox minor league system in just 2 seasons. As a rookie in 1961, he was in the impossible position of replacing Hall of Famer Ted Williams in left field at Boston's Fenway Park. Just as impossible was that by 1967, Yaz and the Red Sox, 100-1 underdogs, were poised for what might have been the most important season in Red Sox history. We pick up the story there in Part 2 of Yaz, the life story of Carl Yastrzemski, in this special edition of the Red Sox Report presented by CVS Pharmacy. Carl Yastrzemski was notorious for working on and tweaking his swing. In the spring of 1967, Yaz hoped to add some power. Sox coach, Hall of Famer Bobby Doerr, was there to help.
He was in my corner and really helped a lot.
The Sox had a new manager, Dick Williams, and a new attitude. Yaz took the lead in instilling winning ways.
He told Williams, look, I'll do whatever you want me to do. You want me to bunt? With 2 men on, I'll bunt, whatever it is, because he was tired of losing too.
In the Yankees' 1967 home opener, Sox rookie Billy Rohr was pitching a no-hitter with none out in the 9th.
Well hit. Yastrzemski going back. One-handed grab. He made the catch.
Rohr would complete a one-hitter. Yaz's catch was a sign of the great season to come. Following the All-Star break, the Sox won 10 games in a row, the last 6 of those on a trip to Baltimore and Cleveland. They were just a half game out of first place.
He's got it, and the Red Sox do it again.
To their surprise, thousands greeted the team at the airport.
People were patting us on the back. There were fathers with kids, with their kids on their shoulders to see where Yaz was.
The Sox were a phenomenon, led by the man who now had his own signature song.
Carl Yastrzemski, Carl Yastrzemski, Carl Yastrzemski, the man they call Yaz, we love him.
It wasn't just his batting or his glove, but he was a ball of energy the whole year round, and it was an inspiration to all of us.
That when he swings, yeah, here we go again.
On August 18th, in the heat of a 14 pennant race, tragedy marred the magic. Young power-hitting Sox star Tony Conigliaro was hit in the face by a Jack Hamilton fastball.
And it was just silence. 35,000 people, everybody went silent in that ballpark.
Without Tony C in the lineup to protect him, pitchers threw at Yaz.
Oh, that never bothered me. I always had the ability to get out of the way. They throw at your head. I fell forward.
In 1967, there were no divisions and no playoffs, just 2 leagues whose first-place teams went straight to the World Series.
That last 6 weeks of the season, 4-team race, if you win, you're in first place, and if you lost the game, you're in 4th place.
It seemed when the game was on the line, Yaz would be at the plate saying a quick prayer to Grandpa Skanesny, and then delivering. Over the last 12 games of the season, nearly all must-wins, Yaz hit over 500. The entire season came down to 2 games against the Twins. The Sox needed to win both.
Number 44.
In those games, Yaz went 7 for 8, including his 44th homer of the season.
Little soft pop-up. Petrocelli will take it. He does. The ball game is over. The Red Sox win it. And what a mob on this field. They're coming out of the stands from all over.
7 for 8 in the final 2 biggest games of your life. You're too much.
I was just trying best I could, Don, and I had something going for me. I wanted to win it for Mr. Yawkey. He deserved it.
The Sox were a half game ahead of the Tigers, who were still playing. After celebrating, they retreated to the locker room and listened on the radio, hoping the Tigers would lose to the Angels.
Bang, there it is. The 3rd out, and wow, we went nuts.
The Sox were the American League champs. In the World Series against the Cardinals, Yaz hit 400, including 2 clutch home runs, but the Sox came up just short. Series MVP Bob Gibson homered and threw a three-hitter as St. Louis won Game 7. Despite losing the World Series, the Sox won back fans. Attendance more than doubled from 800,000 in 1966 to 1.7 million in 1967. New England was again Red Sox Nation.
It changed everything around. The stands are full again, and the most important thing was that we became winners instead of losers.
Yaz hit 44 home runs, tying Harmon Killebrew for the league lead. Since Yaz also led the league with 121 runs batted in and a .326 batting average, he had won the Triple Crown.
I didn't know until I read about it the next day in the papers. No one thought about individual things. Every pitch, every inning, every play, you were focused on winning. I don't think I would have ever won a Triple Crown if we hadn't been in that pennant race. I know I wouldn't have.
With youth, enthusiasm, and World Series experience, it looked as though the Sox future would include plenty of wins. That's next as Carl Yastrzemski shares his life story as this special edition of the Red Sox Report presented by CVS Pharmacy continues.
There it goes again.
Before the 1968 season even began, there was bad news. Ace pitcher Jim Lomborg, who took to the slopes to keep his legs strong, tore ligaments in his left knee skiing. Then all-star pitcher Jose Santiago went down with an elbow injury. Although Yaz won his third batting title in '68, the Sox reign as American League champs was short-lived.
What I thought was going to be a dynasty after the '67 season wasn't.
But Yaz, just like the determined 8-year-old on the potato farm, kept working.
After I retired, I started to go to spring training and work with the ball club. He would call me, he said, "Mousy, hit me some line drives." It was fun working with him because, he was working hard.
Yaz's 4 hits in the 1970 All-Star Game earned him MVP honors, but his performance was overshadowed by Pete Rose's game-winning collision with Ray Fosse. Back at Fenway, the faithful expected another miracle, but the Sox couldn't get back to the top, and some blamed Yaz.
He used to wear earplugs in left field. He got booed so much in 70, 71, 72.
Yaz continued to play the Green Monster better than anyone in history. In 1971, he led the league in outfield assists for the 6th time, and he won his 6th Gold Glove.
Carl knew every nuance of every angle of that wall. And he worked hard at it. Again, the discipline that he showed as a ball player. It wasn't just a God-given talent. It was something that he developed.
Soon the Sox' bright future was arriving at Fenway. In '72, Carlton Fisk became a regular. Then Dwight Evans, Rick Burleson, and by '74, Jim Rice and Fred Lynn were in the big leagues. Yaz made sure they didn't get the same cold reception he'd received as a rookie.
In so many words, he was saying to Jimmy, if you guys want to play here, this is yours. This is yours and Freddie and Dwight. Just go ahead and enjoy every bit of it.
Yaz had spent some time at first base, and when Jim Rice started pounding the ball out of the park in '75, Yaz played 140 games at first as Rice played in left.
I enjoyed first base because you're more in the game.
Although the team was winning, there was one uncharacteristic meltdown by Yaz.
Figueroa was a sinker-slider guy. He used to run his fastball away from Yaz, and he thought it was way outside. So I got called strike 2, and Yaz was furious. So now, same pitch, even further outside, rings him up. Yaz is furious and dropped his bat. Instead of doing anything else, he just dropped his bat and started burying home plate in dirt.
I also remember the umpire, I don't know why, it was Red Flaherty. And Flaherty was from the Cape. And when I covered up home plate and stuff like that, he said, I'm from the Cape and stuff like that, and you're doing this. And I said, you know what, they hate you at the Cape too.
For the Sox in the mid-'70s, when things got tight, Louis Tiant was there to break the tension.
Yaz would wear the same raincoat every day. And doesn't matter how much, stain was on it or whatever. And one time Tion set it on fire and threw it out the window of a bus in Texas. I mean, and he kept everybody laughing.
Yaz would get his revenge.
Louis was reading the Sunday paper. He had sitting on a trunk, and he had it all up in his face, and Yaz crawled on his belly across the clubhouse floor with a cigarette lighter and set the paper on fire, and that evoked some Hispanic verbalization from Louis.
In the 75 All-Star game, Yaz's pinch hit 3-run homer in the 6th tied the game, but the National League would go on to win. The 75 Sox were in first place from June 29th on. But on September 21st, Jim Rice was hit by a pitch, breaking his hand and knocking him out of the lineup for the rest of the year. Yaz went back to play the monster as though he'd never left.
Here comes the throw to third, and
In the playoffs, the Sox faced the Oakland A's dynasty that had won 3 consecutive World Series. Yaz hit .455, including a big home run in Game 2, and played Gold Glove defense in left as well.
the second. Here comes Jackson. Here comes the throw. He's out.
The Sox swept the best-of-5 series. And in what many say is the most exciting World Series in history, Yaz hit .310. But just as they had in '67, the Sox lost in 7 games with one of their key players out due to injury.
75 was a big disappointment because we didn't have Rice.
Yaz would get one more shot at postseason play. That's next as this special edition of the Red Sox Report, presented by CVS Pharmacy, continues. In 1977, with Jim Rice primarily at DH, Yaz went back to left field again. No problem, though. He won an amazing 7th Gold Glove. Before the '78 season, the Sox traded for a Somerset, Massachusetts native who played second base.
I grew up admiring Yaz because I was a teenager at the time when in '67, the Impossible Dream Team came along. So he was always my favorite player.
That 1978 season saw the Red Sox take a 10-game lead in July, lose that lead by mid-September, and reach deep to win their final 8 games, forcing a 1-game playoff with New York. That year's American League Cy Young winner Ron Guidry got the start for the Yankees.
Guidry was 25-3. Yaz comes up in the second inning. Guidry throws him a fastball up and in.
Drive to right field. This is deep, and this ball is gone. A home run for Yastrzemski.
That was sort of what Yastrzemski was when it counted.
God bless him, I'll tell you. That's unbelievable.
No one had a better view than Yaz as Bucky Dent's 3-run homer barely cleared the Green Monster, giving New York a 3-2 lead in the 7th.
Home run for Bucky Dent.
I thought it was halfway up on the wall, and I was kind of in shock that it went into the net.
In the 8th, Yaz drove in Remy to make it 5-3. Then he scored the run that cut the Yankees' lead to 5-4. It was still 5-4 when Yaz came up in the bottom of the 9th with Burleson on third, Remy on first, and 2 out.
I remember standing at first base. I said, "This is perfect."
I was exactly where I wanted to be at that moment, and my concentration was there, and I kept saying to myself, okay, look for something down and in and hit it through that hole at first base. Get the run in from third. Don't try to get an extra base hit or anything else. And he made a perfect pitch. It was down and in, but exploded in on me, which I didn't expect. I knew his ball up exploded, but the one down came in on me a little more than what I thought. I couldn't get the head of the bat out. But like I said, even though the results weren't there, I'm glad I was in that situation.
My locker was next to his, and he was in tears after the game. That's how badly he wanted to win.
The anguish was there because you don't have that many opportunities to go to the World Series. And I felt like I let my team down, everybody down.
1979 marked another shift for Yaz. He played more games as designated hitter than at first base or left field.
I hated the DH. You're not in the game. And then all of a sudden you're going to have to come to the plate. and you've got to get up mentally.
Yaz's commitment never wavered.
If he didn't play well or didn't hit well, they'd pull the batting cage out after the game. He'd stay and he'd hit, for hours after a game.
And he was still the toughest guy on the field.
The Red Sox were in a game losing 7-5 in the ninth inning. And Yaz came up with 2 on and 2 out, and Baylor Moore threw 2 straight pitches behind his head. I quoted Yaz in the paper the next day as saying, "That's the closest I've ever felt to coming to death." I mean, they were really vicious. He got up, hit the next pitch off the center field fence, scored both runs, tied the game, and meticulously called timeout, took 5 steps off of third towards the mound, and spit towards Baylor Moore. It was just classic, I'm the toughest guy in the room.
Most guys, when they get knocked down, they're going for that at bat. That was just the beginning of his bat, so it was a mistake to knock him down.
1979 was a year of milestones for Yaz. On July 24th, he hit his 400th homer.
Home run number 400, Carl Yastrzemski. Now, listen and watch.
Less than 2 months later, Yaz was on the precipice of another achievement.
I was trying to hit a home run, and Walter Reniak, after the second game, I was 0 for 8. He came up to me and he says, "What are you trying to do?" He said, "I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to hit a home run. Just get a base hit. Don't try to hit a home run." That's why it took so long.
There goes the ground ball. Base hit. Number 3,000. Yastrzemski's got it.
Yaz became just the 15th player to reach 3,000 hits. At the time, he joined Willie Mays, Stan Musial, and Hank Aaron as the only major leaguers to achieve 3,000 hits and 400 homers.
Finally.
In 1983, his 23rd season, Yaz was off to a good start. But as manager Ralph Houck's team faltered, so too did the tired slugger.
He was talking about retiring, and I kept saying, "So, man, you can play another year. You can play another year." You just didn't want to see him go.
2 weeks, 3 weeks before the season ended, we were in Minneapolis, and I said, "Ralph, I want to talk to you." We were in his office, and I said, if the prospects were bright next year for the team, I'd come back. I said, but I don't think that we're going to make that kind of improvement in the off seasons. I'm going to retire. I just can't concentrate the way I should.
The Sox celebrated Yaz's career on his final weekend as a player. Yaz's final game, Sunday, October 2nd of 1983, was an emotional farewell. Houck sent him out to play left field just one more time.
Yaz familiarly turns and plays it off the wall, and he will get it back in quickly.
Yaz stroked his 3,419th hit that day, marking the end of a career that had spanned 3 decades, 23 seasons, 18 All-Star selections, 452 homers, and 3,308 games. Only Pete Rose played in more Major League games.
Thank you so much for being here, and I hope I represented Boston and New England with class and with dignity.
In an impromptu gesture, Yaz began to circle the field. The Sox fans who had booed him, cheered him, and become part of his life said thanks. And Yaz did the same.
He was the Red Sox. I didn't have Ted Williams in my life. I had Yastrzemski.
Not only did he do all that, he came back, sat down at a table, and all the fans that were there, they were lined up down the street to get the autograph the last day of the season. So he was like, he had a party, it was scheduled for 7 o'clock or 6:30. I think Yaz got there at 9:45.
Individual accomplishments didn't matter much to Carl Yastrzemski, but being inducted into baseball's Hall of Fame sure did. Yaz actually worried about whether he would get in. His first ballot total would be among the highest in the history of the Hall of Fame. That summer, he was inducted.
Ladies and gentlemen, no man is an island. He must have a support system without he cannot function. Take my father, super athlete himself, possessing all the talent and dedication needed to make the big leagues. but living at the time of the Depression. He had suppressed his own desires in order that his family could survive and prosper, so he worked and labored toward that end. If ever there is living proof that some people make sacrifices for others, it's my dad.
Weeks later, the Red Sox retired Yaz's number 8, assuring he will live in Fenway Park forever. Each year, Yaz enjoys leaving his private world for spring training.
The new ownership, they're very big on tradition. It's nice to see Dwight down here, Tommy Harper, Louie, Jimmy Rice. It's like a reunion.
Off the field, Yaz always kept his family life private. He had 4 children over the course of his career, daughters Mary Ann, Suzanne, and Carolyn. His only son, Carl Jr., known as Mike, played minor league ball. The Yastrzemskis experienced heartbreak in 2004 when Mike passed away at the age of 44 from complications following hip surgery. But there is another Yastrzemski in the baseball pipeline. Carl's grandson Mike played well in the 2011 College World Series as an outfielder for Vanderbilt University and was drafted by the Baltimore Orioles. Grandpa Yaz is plenty active. Motivated by triple bypass surgery in 2008, he spends plenty of time with his family and gets plenty of exercise.
Doctor told me to play golf 5 days a week, go fishing 2 days a week, and work out in the weight room on the days you go fishing.
And Yaz gives back, hosting Yaz Day at Fenway Park each year to benefit the Genesis Fund. The event raises money to help New England area children with birth defects.
There you go.
He still admires determination, loves baseball, and loves the Red Sox.
He said to me, thank God I played in Boston. Thank God I was here. Thank God I had played for Tom Yawkey.
They can talk about all the other, Williams included, Joe Cronin, all the great players in the history of the Red Sox. Yastrzemski is as good as any player we've ever had.
The one and only number 8, yes!
I had to work every single day in the big leagues. It wasn't easy. Proves that if you have desire and determination to do something, you can.
50 years after his first big league season with the Sox, he again triumphantly graced Fenway's left field. The greatest living Red Sox would throw out the first pitch of the 100th season of Fenway Park. For Sox fans, the number 8 will always symbolize the Long Island farm boy whose desire, work ethic, determination, and toughness carried him to Fenway Park, into the hearts of Red Sox Nation, and all the way to baseball's Hall of Fame.